In a world that often demands certainty, embracing doubt might seem counterintuitive. Yet paradoxically, when we learn to accept uncertainty as an inherent part of existence, life becomes remarkably lighter. This concept finds profound resonance in Viktor Frankl's existential philosophy and logotherapy approach. The weight of false certainty. Many of us carry the heavy burden of believing we must have all the answers. We construct elaborate systems of certainty about our careers, relationships, beliefs and futures, often to shield ourselves from the anxiety that uncertainty provokes. This relentless pursuit of certainty creates a rigid framework that demands constant maintenance and defense, creates fear of being wrong, generates resistance to new information, builds walls between ourselves and others with different perspectives, produces cognitive dissonance when reality challenges our certainties. Frankl observed this phenomenon during his time in Nazi concentration camps, noting how prisoners who clung desperately to specific certainties about their future liberation dates often collapsed psychologically when those dates passed without rescue. The weight of shattered certainty proved more devastating than the ability to exist within uncertainty. Doubt as a psychological tool, rather than viewing doubt as weakness, Frankl's approach suggests reframing it as a sophisticated psychological tool. Purposeful doubt serves several vital functions, creates mental flexibility. Doubt allows us to adapt to changing circumstances rather than breaking under them. It builds psychological resilience through intellectual humility, opens pathways to growth. By acknowledging what we don't know, we create space for learning. Doubt is the doorway to expansion, while certainty often marks the end of curiosity. Reduces defensive posturing. When we embrace doubt, we spend less energy defending established positions and more energy exploring possibilities. Alleviates perfectionism. Doubt helps us recognize the impossibility of perfect knowledge or perfect action, releasing us from paralyzing standards. Enables authentic connection. Sharing uncertainties creates deeper human connections than sharing proclamations of certainty ever could. The paradox of provisional commitment. Frankl's genius was recognizing that embracing doubt does not mean abandoning commitment. Instead, it means making what philosopher Jacob Needleman called provisional commitments, moving forward with purpose while maintaining awareness that our understanding may evolve. This stance allows for what Frankl called tragic optimism, the ability to say yes to life despite its inherent uncertainties and inevitable sufferings. By embracing doubt without surrendering to nihilism, we find a middle path that is both intellectually honest and emotionally sustainable. Consider how this approach transforms everyday challenges. Career uncertainties become opportunities for exploration rather than sources of anxiety. Relationship questions become avenues for deeper understanding rather than threats. Spiritual doubts become pathways to authentic faith rather than failures of devotion. Health concerns become manageable realities rather than catastrophic certainties. As Frankl wrote, "The greatest task for any person is to find meaning in his or her life." This search for meaning occurs not through demanding certainty, but through navigating doubt with courage and curiosity. Practical applications. Embracing doubt as a path to a lighter life involves specific practices. Cultivate the phrase, "I might." Be wrong as an internal mantra, not as self-deprecation but as liberation. Distinguish between productive and unproductive doubt, recognizing when doubt serves growth versus when it merely paralyzes. Practice cognitive flexibility by deliberately considering alternative perspectives. Develop comfort with provisional knowledge by using phrases like, "based on what I currently understand." Engage in regular belief review, periodically examining which certainties you might be holding too tightly. The lightness that comes from embracing doubt isn't about abandoning conviction, but about holding our convictions with open hands rather than clenched fists. As Frankl demonstrated through his life's work, this approach doesn't diminish our capacity for purpose. It enhances it by making our purposes adaptable, resilient, and authentically chosen. Topic 2. The Psychology of Purpose. Viktor Frankl's Revolutionary insights. Viktor Frankl's contribution to understanding human purpose emerged from the crucible of suffering. As a Holocaust survivor who lost his pregnant wife, parents, and brother in concentration camps, Frankl's insights weren't merely theoretical, they were forged in humanity's darkest moments. His approach offers a profound psychological framework for finding purpose that differs markedly from contemporary self-help philosophies, meaning as the primary human motivation. While Freud positioned pleasure and Adler emphasized power as core human motivations, Frankl proposed that the search for meaning constitutes our most fundamental drive. This will to meaning isn't simply one psychological need among many, it's the central organizing principle of a well-lived life. Frankl observed that even in the most dehumanizing conditions of concentration camps, those who maintained a sense of meaning demonstrated remarkable resilience. This wasn't about positive thinking or denying suffering, but about finding purpose within suffering itself. Key elements of Frankl's understanding of meaning include: meaning cannot be prescribed. It must be discovered by each person individually. Meaning exists in every circumstance, even in unavoidable suffering. Meaning is dynamic. It changes across situations and throughout life. Meaning is accessible. It doesn't require extraordinary intellect or resources. The three pathways to meaning. Frankl identified three primary avenues through which humans discover meaning. Creative values, giving to the world. We find meaning by creating something of value or performing meaningful acts. This includes professional contributions, artistic expression, building relationships, acts of service, problem-solving, innovation, and invention. Importantly, the value of these contributions isn't measured by external recognition, but by their authentic expression of our unique capacities. Frankl believed each person has irreplaceable creative potential that, when expressed, generates meaning. Meaning emerges through experiencing goodness, truth, and beauty. This includes encountering nature, appreciating art, receiving love, learning and discovery, witnessing courage, experiencing transcendence. Frankl particularly emphasized how loving relationships create meaning through genuine encounter with another's uniqueness. Love is the only way to grasp another human being in the innermost core of his personality, he wrote. Attitudinal values, responding to unavoidable suffering. Perhaps Frankl's most revolutionary insight concerns finding meaning in unavoidable suffering through the attitude we adopt. When we cannot change our circumstances, we can still choose our response, finding dignity in difficult situations, discovering inner freedom amid external constraints, transforming personal tragedy into human triumph, using suffering as an opportunity for growth, demonstrating courage that inspires others. Frankl witnessed prisoners who, despite starvation and abuse, shared their last piece of bread or offered encouragement to others. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, he wrote, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. The existential vacuum in modern society. Frankl identified a growing existential vacuum in industrialized societies, a widespread sense of emptiness and meaninglessness. He attributed this to two historical losses: loss of instinct. Unlike animals, humans aren't automatically guided by instinct. Loss of tradition. Modern societies no longer provide stable values and roles. This vacuum manifests as conformity, doing what others do, totalitarianism, doing what others want. Various addictions and compulsions, depression and aggression, pervasive boredom, even amid material comfort. Frankl's analysis remains strikingly relevant today, as many people experience what he called Sunday neurosis, the empty feeling when the busy week pauses and one must confront the question of meaning. Logotherapy. Frankl's therapeutic approach to address meaning-related suffering. Frankl developed logotherapy from logos, meaning. Unlike other therapeutic approaches focused primarily on introspection, logotherapy is future-oriented and meaning-centered. Key logotherapeutic techniques include paradoxical intention, For issues intensified by anticipatory anxiety, like insomnia, or performance anxiety, patients are encouraged to intend precisely what they fear. By humorously exaggerating their symptoms, they break the cycle of anxiety. Dereflection, when excessive self-focus becomes problematic, patients are guided to shift attention away from themselves toward meaningful purposes beyond themselves. Socratic dialogue. Through careful questioning, therapists help patients discover the meaning already present, but unrecognized in their lives. Attitude, modification. Patients learn to reframe unchangeable difficulties by finding meaning within them, rather than just enduring them. The modern relevance. Viktor Frankl's purpose psychology. In our achievement-oriented culture, purpose is often confused with success or happiness. Frankl's approach offers critical distinctions. Purpose precedes happiness. Happiness ensues from meaningful living rather than being successfully pursued directly. Purpose transcends self. Authentic purpose always points beyond oneself toward people or causes served. Purpose embraces reality. Rather than escaping difficulties, purpose incorporates them into a meaningful narrative. Purpose requires responsibility. We must answer life's questions through our choices and actions. As Frankl wrote, life, ultimately, means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. In a culture often focused on self-optimization, Frankl's psychology offers the revolutionary suggestion that we find ourselves most completely when we forget ourselves in service to meaning beyond ourselves. If Viktor Frankl's ideas on embracing doubt are transforming your thinking, stay to learn how to apply them in practice. Like this video to strengthen our philosophical community and subscribe to not miss our upcoming content on existential psychology. The integration of doubt into a purposeful life represents one of the most sophisticated psychological achievements available to us. This synthesis, suggested by Frankl's work and elaborated by subsequent existential thinkers, offers a roadmap to living with both meaning and lightness, qualities often falsely positioned as opposites. The heavy burden of certainty. Seeking our psychological relationship with certainty often follows a problematic pattern. We experience the natural anxiety of uncertainty. We seek certainty as an antidote to this anxiety. We become emotionally invested in our certainties. We defend these certainties against contradictory information. We experience relationship conflicts over differing certainties. We feel threatened when life events challenge our certainties. We invest increasing energy in maintaining our certainties. This pattern creates what psychologists call cognitive load, the mental effort required to process information. Maintaining rigid certainties against life's inherent uncertainties demands enormous cognitive resources, leaving less mental capacity for creativity, presence, joy, and connection. The lightness of purposeful doubt. Purposeful doubt, doubt integrated with meaning, creates psychological lightness through several mechanisms. Reduced cognitive dissonance. When we embrace uncertainty as natural, contradictory information no longer threatens our identity or worldview. This dramatically reduces the psychological tension of cognitive dissonance that occurs when reality conflicts with our beliefs. Intellectual humility. As strength, recognizing the limits of our knowledge isn't weakness but strength. Research by psychologists like Carol Dweck shows that intellectual humility correlates with greater learning capacity, improved problem solving, enhanced creativity, better relationship outcomes, reduced ideological extremism. Freedom from perfectionism. Doubt allows us to act with provisional knowledge rather than demanding complete understanding before moving forward. This liberates us from the paralysis of perfectionism. Expanded perceptual field. When not defending certainties, we notice more. Our perceptual field expands to include information we might otherwise filter out, creating richer, more nuanced understanding. Psychological flexibility as resilience. The capacity to adapt beliefs in response to new information creates psychological resilience. Like a tree that bends rather than breaks in strong winds, flexible thinking allows us to maintain integrity, amid changing circumstances. The dance of doubt and meaning. Bringing together Frankl's emphasis on meaning with an embrace of doubt creates a sophisticated existential stance. This integration involves purposeful uncertainty. Rather than doubting aimlessly, we doubt in service to meaning. Our questions have direction. They help us refine understanding rather than merely destabilize it. Meaning without dogmatism, we commit to meaningful purposes while acknowledging the provisional nature of our understanding. This allows conviction without fanaticism. Value-directed exploration. Our core values guide our exploration of uncertainty, providing stable reference points without rigid answers. Community of questioners. We connect with others, not through shared certainties, but through shared exploration of meaningful questions. Tragic optimism. We maintain hope without denying life's inherent unpredictability and suffering, what Frankl called saying yes to life despite everything. Practical applications for modern life. The integration of doubt and purpose offers practical strategies for common challenges. Professional life. Replace rigid career plans with purpose-driven experimentation. View failures as information rather than indictments. Cultivate both specialized expertise and beginner's mind. Balance conviction. In values with flexibility in methods. Use doubt to identify blind spots and biases relationships. Replace certainty about others with ongoing curiosity. Hold space for partners to evolve rather than expecting consistency. Distinguish between commitment to people and certainty about outcomes. Use doubt to question reactive patterns rather than acting on them. Allow relationships to teach rather than confirm. Personal development. Replace achievement. Benchmarks with learning orientations. Question. Internalized shoulds and societal expectations. Distinguish between authentic values and defensive identities. Use doubt to examine unhelpful narratives about yourself. Allow purpose to evolve through different life stages. Spiritual life. Embrace mystery as spiritual practice rather than spiritual failure. Distinguish between faith, trust amid uncertainty, and certainty. Question interpretations without abandoning core values. Use doubt to deepen rather than abandon spiritual inquiry. Find meaning in the questions themselves, not just answers. The art of lightness. The lightness that comes from integrating doubt with purpose isn't frivolous or disengaged. It's the sophisticated lightness of the jazz musician who knows the structure well enough to improvise, the martial artist whose strength comes from flexibility, the wise elder who holds strong convictions with a light touch, the scientist whose best work begins with, "I wonder." The compassionate friend who listens before concluding. As Frankl discovered in the most extreme circumstances, meaning doesn't require certainty. In fact, the most profound meaning often emerges precisely when we relinquish our demand for certainty and embrace life as it actually presents itself, filled with questions, contradictions, surprises, and possibilities. The truly light life isn't empty of purpose, but full of meaningful engagement, with an ever-unfolding reality that exceeds our capacity to fully comprehend it. In embracing both doubt and purpose, we find not the brittle happiness of having all the answers, but the resilient joy of perpetual discovery. Viktor Frankl's work provides a roadmap for developing what might be called existential courage, the ability to face life's fundamental uncertainties while maintaining purpose and dignity. This courage represents not just a psychological skill, but a philosophical stance toward existence itself. The nature of existential courage. Existential courage differs from ordinary bravery. While traditional courage might involve facing specific dangers or fears, existential courage means confronting the inherent uncertainties of human existence, the certainty of death, but uncertainty about its timing and nature, the responsibility, a freedom without guarantees about outcomes, the search for meaning without absolute assurance of finding it, the desire for connection despite inevitable separation and loss, the pursuit of authenticity amidst social pressures and expectations. Frankl demonstrated this courage in extreme circumstances, but its relevance extends to everyday life. Each day presents smaller versions of these existential challenges, decisions made without complete information, relationships sustained without guarantees, projects undertaken without certainty of success. The false refuge of certainty. Humans naturally seek certainty as protection against existential anxiety. We construct systems that promise to eliminate uncertainty, rigid ideologies that claim to explain everything, controlling behaviors that attempt to eliminate variables, avoidance strategies that shield us from potential loss, authority structures that promise security in exchange for obedience, consumption patterns that distract from deeper questions. These certainty structures offer temporary comfort, but ultimately fail because they conflict with reality's inherent uncertainty. As Frankl observed in concentration camps, those who couldn't tolerate uncertainty often suffered the most profound psychological collapse when their certainties were inevitably challenged. Frankl's model of existential courage. From Frankl's work, we can extract a four-component model of existential courage. 1. Awareness without despair. Existential courage begins with clear-eyed recognition of life's uncertainties without surrendering to nihilism or despair. Frankl called this tragic optimism, maintaining hope while facing life's tragic dimensions. This awareness involves acknowledging mortality without being paralyzed by death anxiety, recognizing freedom's burden without escaping into determinism, accepting life's potential meaninglessness while continuing to create meaning. Understanding isolation's inevitability while continuing to connect. 2. Responsibility. Frankl emphasized that while we cannot control all circumstances, we maintain the freedom to choose our response. This responsibility forms the core of existential courage. Even in concentration camps, Frankl observed individuals who maintained inner dignity despite degradation, shared scarce resources despite deprivation, created meaning through small acts of kindness, preserved humanity in dehumanizing conditions. This responsibility applies equally to everyday uncertainties, job loss, relationship challenges, health concerns, or creative blocks. In each case, existential courage manifests not in controlling circumstances, but in choosing our stance toward them. 3. Commitment, despite uncertainty. Perhaps the most difficult aspect of existential courage is making commitments without guarantees. Frankl recognized that meaningful action requires commitment. Even amid doubt, this commitment involves loving fully despite inevitable loss, creating despite uncertain reception, developing mastery despite limited time, taking moral stands despite ambiguous outcomes, pursuing purpose despite changing conditions. Unlike the false security of dogmatism, existential commitment remains open to revision while providing direction. It's the difference between saying, "I know this path is absolutely right forever," and "this path seems meaningful now, so I'll follow it wholeheartedly," while remaining open to what I'll learn along the way. 4. Community amid isolation. Frankl recognized that while existential courage must be cultivated individually, it flourishes in community. The most resilient concentration camp prisoners maintained connections that transcended their circumstances. Existential courage includes sharing vulnerabilities rather than just strengths, acknowledging shared uncertainties rather than pretending certainty, supporting others' meaning-making rather than imposing meanings, creating solidarity in facing common existential challenges, building communities of purpose rather than merely convenience, cultivating existential courage in modern life. Frankl's insights suggest specific practices for developing existential courage. Meaning-focused reflection. Regular reflection on what provides meaning creates resilience against uncertainty. Questions that foster this reflection include: what experiences have I found deeply meaningful? What suffering has revealed unexpected meaning? Where do I experience purpose beyond myself? What would I stand for even if no one else stood with me? What gives me a sense of rightness even amid doubt? Strategic discomfort. Intentionally practicing with small uncertainties builds capacity for facing larger ones. This might involve trying activities where success isn't guaranteed, entering conversations without predetermined outcomes, creating without knowing how work will be received, making decisions with incomplete information, facing fears in controlled, incremental ways. Meaning. Communities surrounding ourselves with others committed to meaningful living provide support for existential courage. These communities might be creative collaborations, spiritual or philosophical groups, service organizations, learning cohorts, close friendships centered on growth, provisional expertise, developing what philosopher Jacob Needleman called provisional expertise, deep knowledge held with humility, allows confident action without dogmatism. This involves mastering fields while acknowledging their limits, developing strong opinions weakly held, balancing specialization with broader perspective, teaching from experience while remaining open to learning, speaking with conviction while listening with curiosity, the paradoxical freedom of embracing uncertainty. Frankl's most profound insight may be that embracing uncertainty, rather than trying to eliminate it, creates authentic freedom. When we no longer need certainty to act meaningfully, we discover a deeper kind of liberation. This freedom manifests as flexibility without aimlessness, conviction without rigidity, purpose without predetermination, significance without permanence, connection without possession. The existential courage to live with uncertainty doesn't eliminate anxiety, but it transforms our relationship with it. Rather than being a sign something is wrong, anxiety becomes a natural companion to meaningful living, the shadow cast by commitment in an uncertain world. As Frankl wrote, what man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal, a freely chosen task. Existential courage allows us to choose such tasks not because we're certain of success, but because the choosing itself, the commitment to meaning amid uncertainty, constitutes the core of human dignity. How do we translate Frankl's profound insights about doubt and meaning into everyday practice? While his ideas emerged from extreme circumstances, their application to daily life requires specific, actionable approaches. Here are key practices for integrating meaningful doubt into ordinary days. Morning reflection, holding purpose. Lightly. Begin each day by reconnecting with purpose while acknowledging uncertainty. Ask yourself, what matters today, regardless of outcome? What meaningful contribution can I make amid today's uncertainties? What attitude will I choose toward inevitable challenges? This practice frames the day within purpose, while maintaining flexibility about how that purpose manifests. Doubt journaling. Productive questioning. Regularly write about what you're uncertain about, distinguishing between paralyzing doubt that prevents action, productive doubt that refines understanding, purpose-enhancing doubt that deepens meaning. This transforms doubt from an obstacle into a tool for growth. The provisional stance. As far as I can tell. Practice prefacing opinions with phrases like, my current understanding is, or based on what I now know. This maintains both conviction and openness, embodying what Frankl called living the fi. Question. Meaning anchors, values amid uncertainty. Identify 3 to 5 core values that provide stability amid changing circumstances. Unlike rigid goals, values like contribution, connection, or creativity provide direction without demanding specific outcomes. The both-and approach, embracing paradox practice. Holding seemingly contradictory truths simultaneously, life is both meaningful and absurd. We are both significant and insignificant. We need both commitment and flexibility. We experience both connection and isolation. This capacity for paradoxical thinking builds existential maturity. The ultimate question, from why to how. When facing difficulties, transform the question from why is this happening to how will I respond. This shift embodies Frankl's emphasis on responsibility, our freedom to choose our stance, toward unchangeable circumstances. Through these daily practices, Frankl's profound philosophy becomes lived experience. The integration of doubt and purpose creates not a perfect life, but an authentic one, where meaning emerges not despite uncertainty, but through our courageous engagement with it. Viktor Frankl's insights offer us a transformative approach to living with both purpose and lightness. By embracing doubt as a path rather than an obstacle, integrating meaning as our primary motivation, and cultivating the courage to face life's uncertainties with an open heart, we discover that life doesn't become easier because our challenges diminish. It becomes easier because our capacity to engage with those challenges expands. The integration of doubt and purpose creates not just psychological resilience but existential joy, the profound satisfaction of living in accordance with our deepest values while remaining open to life's unfolding mysteries. This may be Frankl's greatest legacy, showing us that even in our darkest moments, meaning is available not through escape but through engagement, not through certainty but through the courageous embrace of life as it is, with all its questions, challenges, and possibilities. Hey everyone! If this video about Viktor Frankl's ideas touched your heart, don't keep this reflection to yourself. Like this video so more people can discover how embracing doubt makes life lighter. Comment with your biggest takeaway from watching this content. Your experience might inspire others. Share it with that friend who's facing uncertainties in life. Subscribe to the channel for more content on existential psychology and personal growth. And don't forget to hit the bell to get notified about new videos. Together we can build a community that finds meaning even in life's uncertainties. See you in the next video.